Hi everyone! So, for my biology project, I wanted to talk about genetics. And I really wanted to find a gene that was really interesting and something that I would enjoy talking about. So, I ended up choosing the DMD gene, so that's what I'm going to be talking about today. And I'm Nicole De La Rosa. So, just to start off with the general information, this DMD gene, it's also known as the dystrophin gene, and it is a human gene that provides the instructions for making the protein dystrophin, which is why it has the name it has. And that is very essential for muscle strength and stability. And like I said, it's crucial for strengthening and protecting your muscle fibers. And it was actually discovered in 1986 through a positional cloning technique, which I thought was really cool and interesting. But what was so odd about this discovery and what was so big about it was that it was discovered after discovering the disease. So usually it should be the opposite, where you discover the gene first and then you discover the diseases that can come from it. But it was the other way around, which I thought that was really interesting. So it is also the largest known gene in humans as well. And to put it lightly, dystrophin helps stabilize and protects muscle fibers. And it can also act as a shock absorber, and that ends up protecting your muscle cells from physical stress, of contraction and or relaxation. And it also has cell signaling, so cells can communicate with each other through this process. And it is all this dystrophin is also primarily found in your cardiac muscles and your skeletal muscles, which is pretty much everywhere around your body, which is why it's the largest known gene. And it's not only found in humans, it's also found in mammals as well. People who test for all the mutational data and all the diseases, they test on mammals, but usually mice. So now I'm going to get into the gene family topic. So the main protein that this gene encodes is dystrophin. And it is basically the main member of the family. And dystrophin assists with connecting the internal cytoskeleton of muscle cells to proteins outside of the cell. And that can act as an anchor for strengthening muscle fibers, and that will protect them from injuries during contraction and relaxation. And this just prevents muscle cells getting damaged. And the muscle membrane is very fragile. So without having a functional dystrophin protein, it not only becomes more fragile, but then it can lead to muscle degeneration. And that can lead to mutations and diseases, which I will get into later. But it also includes dystrophin-related proteins like utrophin and dystrobrephin. So utrophin is similar to dystrophin, but it is located in neuromuscular synapse and myotendinous junctions. And that image is what the dystrophin protein looks like. So I'm just going to go more into depth about this whole concept and how dystrophin works and how it can lead to mutations and all of that stuff. So this is just an image to kind of help visualize what's going on. So like I said, dystrophin's main function is to link the contractile element of the muscle to a large complex of proteins. And that large complex of proteins, that spans the sarcolemma. And the sarcolemma is a specialized membrane that surrounds muscle fiber. So dystrophin's function is to help protect the sarcolemma from contraction-induced injury. And when dystrophin is absent, the muscle fiber can get damaged. That damage then leaks creatine kinase to escape. Now, I've already said it, but being without dystrophin is very unsafe, and it destroys and damages your healthy muscle. And that damaged muscle tissue gets replaced by scar tissue over time. So this ends up with this is just poor healing, and this ends up declining your motor functions, and that is a common symptom in patients with the disease called DMD, and that is through a mutation in the dystrophin protein, and I will talk about that in a little bit. But I also kind of want to go over this exon chart. So the dystrophin gene contains 79 exons, and if one of these train cars or multiple train cars gets deleted, that is a mutation in the gene. And that means that there is less exons. And since there's less exons, they decide to bind because, they need to be together. But not all exons are compatible or fit to each other. So that causes frame shift mutations. Now, there's also another mutation that doesn't disrupt the reading frame, and they're called in-frame mutations. And translation of these exons allow muscle cells to make small amounts of partially functional proteins. And these partial functional proteins come from Becker muscular dystrophy, also known as the in-frame mutation. So here's an example. So, for instance, in this case, the 74 train car gets deleted. So that means that the 73 train car and the 75 train car have to come together. They have to be compatible. And in this case, they are, because the puzzle pieces fit. They fit with each other. Whereas in Duchenne muscular dystrophy, also known as an out-of-frame mutation, the 52 train car in this example gets deleted, and 51 and 53 have to come together, but they don't fit. The puzzle pieces don't match. That's why for Duchenne muscular dystrophy, the symptoms are more severe than Becker muscular dystrophy. DMD and BMD. So, Duchenne muscular dystrophy is a recessive disorder which is caused by mutations in the dystrophin gene. This one is much more damageable than BMD, but both are very serious. And BMD, Becker muscular dystrophy, is actually an inherited muscle disorder that causes weak muscle loss and weakness. Now, here's just an image to kind of help better understand what this is and how Becker and Duchenne aren't normal, and it shouldn't be that way. So there's in-frame mutation and then out-of-frame mutation, and according to BMC Genomics in 2024, BMD is characterized by later onset and relatively slow progress, and heart failure from DCM is a common cause of death in BMD. So a lot of heart failure is involved with BMD and DMD as well. But the reason why DMD is so much, it's more common in males than females, which is really interesting. So the reason for that is because men have X and Y chromosomes while women have X and X chromosomes. And DMD is a lethal X-linked recessive muscle dystrophy. So if one X chromosome is damaged, women still have another X chromosome to help it, but men do not. So that is why this is such a big issue, and this is why it's common in males and rare in females. And 33% of all diagnoses of Duchenne aren't from a parent either. So according to this journal in 2024, it states that as an X-linked recessive disorder, DMD predominantly affects males and is rarely observed in females. And the disorder is usually diagnosed between 3 and 6 years of age when difficulty standing or walking becomes apparent and begins to show developmental regression. So people find out about this disease very early on in their life, and it's very sad, but here are just some examples of kids who have Duchenne muscular dystrophy, and they're wheelchair dependent. And according to this journal in 2021, it states that DMD patients typically represent increasing weakness, growing skeletal muscle wasting, leading to wheelchair dependency by the age of 10, and a later onset cardiomyopathy, and finally, ultimately, death during second to fourth decade of life. So the survival rates have gone up, but it's still pretty low. I mean, you can survive to your 30s or 40s and sometimes even higher, but you don't really get that full lifespan, which I think is very, very sad. And in another article in 2025, it says that reduced DMD gene expression has also been reported in patients with oropharyngeal squamous cell carcinoma, primary and metastatic prostate cancer, pancreatic ductal carcinoma, and breast cancer. So not having this dystrophin protein can also be having to do something with these cell carcinoma and cancer, prostate cancer, and breast cancer. So not having dystrophin is a very big deal and is very important to have it. And if you don't, then bad things can occur, and you may have to be wheelchair dependent. So like I said, it's rare in females, but it can happen, and I wanted to show this image of how it can affect females, and this is from a journal in 2025. So this is just how it affects females as well, and the difference between how it affects females and how it affects males. But this is probably what it looks like for the start of it, and then you can slowly become wheelchair dependent. It just depends. But that is the mutational data for the DMD gene, and that is everything I learned about the DMD gene. And this is my reference list of all of the sources that I used for this presentation. And thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned a lot about the DMD gene and the dystrophin protein and all of its mutations. Thank you.